You believe you know what the world is like because you've seen it. You know. But it is not wisdom. It's perception. You happen to know because you have been conditioned to see it that way. And only by extending yourself into another person's life, by imagination, of projecting your ideas and then testing them, and this is where questions come in, only by that can you get to the point where you have expanded your worldview and they're just not in an echo chamber. Today I want to talk about community. We've done a bit about we are a spiritual community awakening to our divine nature through love, service, and personal transformation. We did the love, service, and personal transformation. I'd like to touch on community today. And I think one of the things that I feel when I'm here is that when I come into this place, and I've heard so many other people say it, I feel like I'm home. I feel like there's a place of safety, a place where people are acceptance, where that is the currency here, kindness and attention to the other without too much attention on ourselves. It is a brilliant way to be. It is a place where people can open up and become who they want to be. And it is vital for each of our development that we have a place like that, and here is one. So thank you for making it so. I've been here a long time. It's been that way the whole time I've been here. There's something special about this community, and I just want to talk today about how to extend your world beyond the places where you feel comfortable and to make it a bigger and better world for you and also for us. Because as we each expand, we expand the whole. So let's begin with that. I want to read you some statistics. These are largely from the last 30 years. They come from this book, How to Know a Person, by David Brooks. And this is not intended to make you feel uplifted, but inspired to act. Between 1990 and 2019, American suicide rates increased 33%. Between 2009 and 19, the percentage of teens who reported persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness rose from 26 to 37%. By 2021, it had shot up to 44%. The percentage of Americans who said they have no close friends quadrupled between 1990 and 2020. One survey, 54% of Americans reported that no one knows them well. 54%. The number of American adults without a romantic partner increased by a third. More to the point, 36% of Americans reported they felt lonely frequently or almost all the time. And that included 61% of young adults and 51% of new mothers. People spending much more time alone, for sure. 2013, they spent an average of 6.5 hours per week with friends, and then it dropped to 38%, and now it's 58%. Now we see about 2 hours per person, 2 hours per week with our friends. Perhaps you're doing better than the national average, but that's not very helpful. When we think about the whole of it, we're doing better, we want to do better, but we need to find a way to be inspiring. I think one of the things I've thought about over the last few weeks is this difficult time. You know, in the last 2 weeks, we've had an attempted assassination and a presidential candidate resign. There's a little bit in the air, right? And most of it is that we hear about is divisive. And so the thing that we need to be is the light on the hill that comes to the world and brings something. We can't just be for ourselves at this point. We must be a beacon of light as well. I'm very much talking to myself when I say that. I tend to recluse. I loved COVID. So I don't have a big leg to stand on, but I just want to say this, I think we need to be opening ourselves to the world. And by opening ourselves to the world, I think here's some things I think would be helpful in doing that. Now, the first one, I think, is to become fully aware of yourself. Many of us have a vocabulary for our emotions that's more limited than our emotions could be parsed out into. For instance, sometimes we think we're angry when we're really just frustrated. Sometimes we think we love somebody when we're just hungry. Do you know what I mean? Hungry for something, like, can you give me something? And it's not really love yet, it's actually something else. Or we sometimes have these emotions and we don't even know what they are. We just feel a little confused, or there's a malaise, or there's something, and we haven't figured out how to parse them out. Learning how to parse them out, many of you might have seen the page that has 3 columns that have different emotions on it, words for different emotions, and as you learn those emotions, what you're really learning is the chemical composition of the way you feel has a name attached to it, and that gives you more facility with your emotions. It will also come in really handy when you're looking at someone else. Now, the process of empathy can be broken down in 3 ways, I'd say at least. The first way is kind of mirroring, and you see people do this all the time. Somebody will cross their arms, and the next person crosses their arms, somebody yawns, somebody coughs, somebody else follows. That's a form of mirroring, but there's also the mirroring that goes, you feel what they're feeling. And so you get in rhythm with their feelings, and it will arise in your own body as a mirroring process. And if you can discern more accurately what you're feeling, then you have a better chance of understanding what's going on with them. And to take it to the next step, then you start to contemplate what is going on with them and where did it come from? Not just, oh, that's an angry person, but oh my gosh, I wonder what caused them to hold anger or to see this as a dangerous or threatening position that we're in right now, where I don't, etc. You begin to investigate mentally the other person, which is projection for sure. And projection has its downfalls because it can often be off by quite a bit. And this you know because we see the world not so much as the world is or how the person is, but we see it how we are feeling and sensing in our perception through the filters of our own minds. And because our own minds have a hard time seeing around the outside of itself, we think we know what the world is like. And psychologists would call this a naive point of view, that you believe you know what the world is like because you've seen it, you know. But it is not wisdom, it's perception. You happen to know because you have been conditioned to see it that way. And only by extending yourself into another person's life, by imagination, of projecting your ideas and then testing them, and this is where questions come in, only by that can you get to the point where you have expanded your worldview and they're just not in an echo chamber. So you've heard that phrase, echo chamber, around smartphones and the way the information comes to us through those, where the logarithm of social media repeats back to you what you just put out there, usually amplified, which makes you even more right. And then you hang out with the same people and they feed it back to you. Blue people tend to live in blue zones and red people tend to live in red zones, and so there's a tendency just to hear it only one point of view, and how silly a way that is to live, but that is how we are living now. We don't know the other because we don't hear from them. And so it is with our perceptions. We don't know another perception until we hear from them. Tell us what it's like for you. To become curious, it might be one of the primary conditions of making a new friend, or to understand how those who are not currently our friends are thinking. You know, Jesus gets this question, you know, what should I do? And Jesus says, love your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might, and love your neighbor as yourself. And the guy, being smart, said, well, who's my neighbor? And he tells that story of the Good Samaritan. And one upshot of that story is that your neighbor is whomever you choose to be in contact with. That is your neighbor. And even the ones you don't like, that's your neighbor. And even the one that is from the other team, that's your neighbor. And so curiosity will bridge the gap between us and them, because you're now going to test your perception. You've been empathetic in this sense. You've been feeling what they're feeling, watching very closely how the tone of their voice, the way it's going, what their mood is, essentially what the energy they're putting out, and you're feeling it in your body, so you're using that aspect of your intuition as well. And now you're testing it by imagining what might be causing them to feel that way, and then you ask. Now this may feel like a little bit of danger to do that, because what you're going to ask is an open-ended question. So like, how did you come to have that understanding? In your background, does it make sense? What is your background? And don't bracket it, say, you know, were you always an angry person? Do you know what I mean? So now you're investigating. And one of the things when you're investigating you can do is ask questions that take it a little deeper. So like, my mother was a piece of work, right? You could say, so your mother was an angry old woman. He goes, no, I never said that. I said she was a piece of work, which the piece of work is indistinct, right? So you have to ask an open-ended question. So what do you mean? Simple. How was she? And then get into specifics. So you're kind of painting a tighter picture. Oh, she used to bark at me all the time. Was that when you came home from school? Do you know what I mean? You begin to be curious, so they feel like, oh yeah, I can tell my story to this person. I have more to share. And this curiosity, we think people don't want to be asked, but they do. Most people do. And if they tell you, I don't want to be asked, which I have done, don't take it personally. It just means they don't want to be asked. I know, because I've said it, and I don't want, so I know. It's not personal. I just don't want to talk to you right now. Easy. But it could be that you say that perfect question that trips for them the release of a story they have wanted to tell. They have found someone who understands them, someone who's listening. For the first time, someone's actually listening to me. And they see me. At least they're curious about me. They're not calling me other at this moment. So you've used your eyes to watch what they're doing. You've used your ears to hear what they're saying. You've used your feeling state to track with them. And now you're asking questions to see if your theory about who they are is unfolding. And that's because you know yourself. You know yourself not to be the final authority of people. You don't know the nature of the world, and you don't know that person in front of you. I was married about 15 years, into my marriage about 15 years, which lasted 20. I remember looking at her and I go, I don't really know the person in front of me. You don't. There's a lot that's still, after 15 years, yet to be unpacked in who she was, right? And imagine what it is with a stranger. I do interviews with new members when they have gone through the new member class, and I usually sit down and I have typically seen the person a few times around, at least maybe had a conversation before. But when I sit down and talk to them for an hour, I go, holy cow. It doesn't show on the surface that you were that. Do you know what I mean? Your story is way better than what I imagined it to be. Now imagine that person that you have already judged. Imagine their story. Why are they like that way? Well, Pete, try to figure that out. Why do they feel that way? Why are they angry at this moment? Maybe they're not angry. Why are they so happy at this moment? Get to know them and pull them into your awareness so that you now expand your worldview. And that way it's generative for you. It makes you bigger and better. But it also makes them feel better about themselves because they have been seen. And one of the primary things, infants will go crazy if they don't feel like they're seen. They literally will start to get irritated if they do this and nobody responds. And if you don't respond for a long time, they'll start crying. And after a while, it becomes traumatic for them. If it's true of an infant, you know at least a remnant of that is true for you. You want to be seen. And they want to be seen. I was telling somebody between services, after the 9 o'clock service, we were talking, and I was saying, I have a friend that I'd known since kindergarten, and one day he said something political that was so outrageous to me. He said, after we finish with Iraq, we'll go and invade Russia. I went, you're just too dumb for me, and I never talked to him again. No, so I'd known this guy for 20 years, right? He said one sentence. Do you think I was wrong? This world really could use healing, couldn't it? And we keep saying, who's going to do it? Who but us? Right? So to bring curiosity is a big thing. To bring curiosity, to ask open-ended questions that let people explain how they are, to actually feel into who they are and try to figure out who they are with a kindness to you. These are great steps toward healing that. It's a great step for healing your sense of separation. Perhaps you're one of the 61% who feel like that they're lonely all the time. And then there are quite a few people left in the world. And so you might be missing an opportunity. And sitting in righteousness is the suckiest thing in the world, is it not? And being political, being a part of a political system is not developing you personally. It is typically, it's about irritation and comradeship, right? So maybe there's another way of doing this. And maybe we're the ones to start doing it. Now, we don't have to be perfect. And we won't. And we will be rejected, and people won't understand, and you'll say, I've got an idea, and you'll try to put it out there, and they'll go, oh, that's ridiculous, and you'll feel that knot come up, or that frustration, or you'll parse it out to you'll feel that incendiary feeling that reminds you of when you were a child. Whatever, you will notice this. And that will give you some new material to work with. But if we don't do it, we, who see universal divinity in people and profess it, isn't that why we should do the next thing I want to talk about, which is respect? Isn't it that we see individual divinity in each person? We say we see it, we often don't. For obvious reasons, they're jerks. But we don't always see it, but we want to. We want to. And we tell ourselves it's in there. And so if we think it's in there, and if we want to see it, the first thing we have to do is give them respect, because they are like us. They want to be happy. They want to be healthy. They want to love. They want to be loved. And they want to succeed. They want those, don't you? They are the same as us at a deeper level. Not only are they the same as on us at the human level of those 5 things, but on a deeper level, they are a light that has broken off from the one light to be engaged in a world that is not easy. They deserve our respect for taking the jump to be a human being like we did. So let's do this. Let's give them respect. And they can tell respect. Haven't you noticed when there's no respect, when respect is missing, doesn't it feel like somebody took the air out of the room? And all you want is to find respect. And what a jerk you can be when you don't feel respected. Or is it just me? Right? Usually I come in low and slow, but I do pack a wallop when I don't feel respected. So here's my suggestion. Start to cultivate respect. In the conversation, see if you can amp it up. And when you have respect for someone, you realize that their journey is their journey, that they have chosen to do it the way they have chosen to do it because, first of all, they have the right to do that, but also because they have the conditioning that you didn't have, whatever it was. They have that conditioning, and so you are right there to learn something about someone else's life because they are different from you, but also you can just respect where they are. And respect is contagious. And if you respect them, I believe what will happen is they will respect you. They may not understand you, and they may not even have a clue what you're saying. It may not make sense to them, all that. But if you show respect, it's the great beginning of getting respect in return. And if you're good enough, you can show respect when you're not getting it. And perhaps the situation will change. So we're curious, we're empathetic, and the last thing, and we show respect. And the last thing I think is something we just practiced here, which is opening your heart. Now I know that when you open your heart, whenever you open your heart, you have a chance to be heard, to hurt. Tenderness. When you bring tenderness to a moment and it is rebuffed, it is quite difficult sometimes. When you bring tenderness to the moment, though, you have a chance of alchemical changing the situation. Because if they can feel that tenderness, that heart openness, that concern for them, that caring, then what you're doing is setting up the very conditions that they are doing everything they're doing for in the first place. Why do you think we do so much of what we do? It is so that we will be loved and appreciated just as we are. And why do we become false? It's because we don't think we can get it for being just as we are. And so we make up this new persona, which is usually worse, defensive, phony, wacky, groupthink, because we don't think we can be accepted just as we are. So we try to get along by going along. But with love, coupled with respect, curiosity, and penetrating investigation, you have a chance to bring them back to themselves. And they were children once, and they were like little angels, and they were happy, and they were vulnerable, and they were just like you and me. And so the stranger is not really the stranger. The stranger is us with different skin, a different story, a different perception. Let us be wise now. Let's wake up to who we are, limited in our understanding of ourselves, but curious at least about ourselves. Then extend that curiosity to another and extend the kindness to them and the respect that we would want extended to us, and see if it doesn't change the way we perceive the world, but also maybe we change the world. Let us pray. Let's move into our hearts. We can practice again right here, right in this place, how to love without condition, which is very simple, but not always easy. Bring the energy to your heart by bringing your breath there. And bring your feelings there. Feel into the heart, but also feel the feelings there. And expand the heart. Let it be larger. Let it grow to encompass your whole body. And now you are a heart, moving through space with the intention of opening the hearts of others by loving them first. Loving them because that's who you are, not who they are. Let us practice our heart opening daily. And let it begin with us. And so it is. Amen. I hope you got something out of today's service. We intend to bring you things that will help you in your life become more of who you want to be, give you the freedom of forgiveness and the hope of expectancy that your life will unfold in a way that brings you joy, happiness, and is a contribution to the world. If you would like to contribute to this ministry, please go to unitytriangle.org, hit the donate button, and it will lead you into an easy way of doing that. We thank you for your attention and look forward to seeing you again here.